Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to the Synergy Partner Briefing 2021. This was supposed to be, of course, an IBC event, but as IBC got cancelled, we had nothing else but to go for Plan B and move this to an online format, which you're, of course, all too familiar with because that's what the industry has been basically doing for the last, almost 2 years. We'll try to keep it short, concise, and not run more than a little over an hour, with the final duration, of course, depending also on the amount of questions and feedback you want to give us later on in the Q&A session. So the partner briefing is to quickly update you on product changes, on pricing changes, what we have available for you as new tools. For instance, we've updated the very, very valuable resource of YouTube videos that people turn to for a lot of information. We want to talk about the partner training. That is, not only is it basically mandatory to keep your status, but it's also important to keep you trained up to the level that you require if you want to give support to your customers. And that is paramount. The last live event we had was the TechCon in February 2021. For those that remember, a very important part of that was the cloud products that we are bringing onto market and what is coming there. So Lewis will talk about that to you a little bit later. Another important thing for you as a tool, you really have to see it as a very important tool, is professional services. How you can use our professional services to manage projects, to get business, to help you to go for projects together with us using our professional services. And we will talk about that as well in a separate session. And then, last but not least, there are two other things I'd like to talk about. Number one is SLA. SLA is not just support that the customer ends up paying and he doesn't get anything in return. SLA is twofold. It's the support that customers are buying through this, and of course we keep their software assets up to date. Because the important part of SLA is, if you're under SLA, just as a reminder, the customer is entitled to the latest version of the software he or she is running. And that for us is important because we'd like to keep customers all at the same level or version of software. We can't really support outdated 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 version numbers back. That is just a support nightmare. Nobody can do that. And finally, one last topic we want to talk about is curated QA. More about that and what that means in a minute. And of course, you will have the chance during this partner briefing to go and virtually meet some of the people, some of the new people, some of the existing people, or people you've never met before, so that you also know who to contact, who to talk to, who is the specialist in what topic. So without any further ado, the next person, Lewis, take it away.
Hello everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to the live portion of this event. So we are actually filming this live in our UK Bristol office, and we're live streaming this onto YouTube. So welcome to you if you're watching me right now, and hello if you're watching on catch-up later, because we know that a lot of people watch these kind of things on demand, and so this will be available there. Obviously, if you're watching this on demand, you can't get any live questions and answers. But if you're watching this on the live stream, please do send us any emails with questions that you think you'd like to put to me and Jan. We'll have a session at the end of this, back with a live link up to Germany to answer your questions. So you can email those questions to sales@synergy.com, as you see on screen, or you can use Twitter and just use the hashtag SynergySales, and we'll pick those up and get those curated, and Simon will put those to me and Jan at the end of all of this. So, Jan's done a great job of presenting to me all of the things that we're going to be going through today. You'll be popping back to me in the studio in Bristol between these packages, and I'll introduce them live. Obviously, this is all run a bit last minute. Until 2 weeks-ish ago, we thought we were going to be seeing you at IBC, and obviously, and very sadly, events have overtaken us. We've put together this hour, quite respectful of your time, we hope, live event to make do with that. So you'll see me between these packages to link up what all of my colleagues have put a lot of effort into. They've had to work quite hard to produce kind of 5-minute presses of things that we'd like to have talked to you about in person, but because of circumstances just can't. Given that, I think it's time for us to roll the first thing, and we'll hear from Andrew over in the Netherlands, who's put together a package about how the pandemic has changed our ways of working and what we've done as a company to help serve you as customers and partners.
So, no IBC this year because, you know why. Just look at my COVID haircut and beard. We've all seen plenty of haircuts like mine on TV around the world over the past 2 years. So, obviously, we need to say a few words about the pandemic. Apart from my haircut, how's Synergy been affected? And what can we offer our customers to help them get through this? Well, Synergy operates a distributed office. This means that we already had an infrastructure that supports safe working. Although the headquarters are in Munich, we connect from where we are. Me in the Netherlands, professional services in Bristol, and so on. Synergy's adoption of cloud technology allowed us to move our partner training structure from what nowadays would be risky classroom sessions to online training. We can no longer do on-site visits, which is a shame, as we appreciate the opportunity when it comes. The same goes for trade shows. But because almost everything we do can be done safely, that is remotely, we've been inconvenienced by the plague, but not disrupted by it. And we've taken care that our inconvenience should not be a problem for our customers. We presented a webinar last year on which technologies to use with Synergy for remote working. If you missed it, you should be able to find it on our YouTube channel. Synergy's support for things like cloud and the SRT protocol make it possible to create temporary safe zones for broadcast staff, as well as providing new workflows, some of which may persist after COVID is gone. And these technologies can be used without any need to purchase them from us. Synergy Multiview's capability to output SRT streams which will pass effortlessly across the public internet means that monitoring can be done away from the operations room. We offer a choice of Amazon and Azure-based Air images which can be rented with a credit card, can be up and running in minutes, and which will only cost money as long as they're being used. Other licenses can be temporarily sourced from our rental price list. It's possible to provide full broadcast services without the danger of exposing valued and skilled personnel to unnecessary risks. And that's important because in these times, audiences are relying on their television services to keep them fully informed of things they need to know about. Also, being stuck at home in the evenings, as people are here in the Netherlands, they also want to be entertained and diverted. Continuity of service is vital in these times more than ever. Feel free to contact us to talk about short-term auxiliary broadcast infrastructure, and we can help you work out what you need. We hope and trust that you've all been able to avoid the worst of the last 2 years, and we hope that you can all keep safe.
Right, well, we've kicked off now. That's our first package. So thanks very much to Andrew for contributing that from his home in the Netherlands, where he's been working. And we're now moving on to these packages back to back. And the next package, you get to hear from me live without a safety net in the studio as I present to you the Synergy partner briefing that we would have done on the trade show floor. So switching into this tighter view, you can now see me and my slide deck giving you the IBC Got Cancelled edition of the partner briefing. And as I sat down and wrote this the other day, I realised that it's actually been coming up on 2.25 years since I last gave an in-person update to customers, sales partners, all of the people we'd normally meet at a trade show. And when I look back through what's happened in that intervening time, I realised a huge amount has happened for us at Synergy, particularly relating to our product updates. So I'm going to take you through some of the most important changes that I've picked out from the highlights since the last time we attended a physical show, which was IBC in September 2019. Hopefully, we'll see you again soon at a trade show. But in the meantime, let's go through some of the things that have been enhanced in our products ever since that last time that I saw you guys. And I'm calling out the things that I think are really meaningful. So, the first thing that I realized as I went back through our catalogue of things that have changed is that since we were last at IBC, we've actually released 3 major versions of Synergy Capture. The latest version, version 21.11, is in release candidate and releasing effectively now. And so we go all the way back then to Synergy Capture version 14, which wasn't out last time we were at IBC. So we've actually had 3 releases since then. It's been quite a long time, and we do like to try and get a major release out approximately every year. So we've got quite a lot of updates for this product. And some of those updates have been really, really impressive and powerful. So I'm going to take you through some of the most important things. And of course, anyone that's got a valid SLA is going to be able to access these latest versions of the software as we keep adding value and keeping things current. Pardon me, that's the first gremlin of the live event. As we can see here, one of the things that we've done since the last IBC, we were demonstrating, if you remember, and we're at that last IBC, we were live videoing a train set model in 8K and demonstrating end-to-end 8K workflows where we captured from an 8K camera that was on loan from Sharp and recorded that using a version of Synergy Capture and recorded it into Synergy Archive. Now, when we showed that, that was all pre-release. That's all changed. This has now been shipping in products for over a year that we have 8K capabilities in our products end to end. And so in this intervening time, we've shipped that, and we'll actually hear a lot more about how 8K impacts us, because obviously that needs to be not just in ingest, but all the way through our pipeline. So as well as adding 8K to our products, we've also gone back and continued our investment in NDI support, which is an alternative IP protocol a lot of customers are finding a lot of success with, and meets a great middle ground between higher end, higher cost SMPTE 2110 type IP deployments through to cloud-oriented and playout-oriented distribution MPEG-2 transport stream outputs. So we're really happy to have the very latest updates to the NDI SDK embedded right in Synergy Capture and all of our products, making sure we can use the latest features that have been added by NewTek and continue to be interoperable with the latest equipment you can buy. And as I touched upon there, NDI serves a great mechanism for doing some production and studio-style interconnections, but you really cannot beat SRT, the Secure Reliable Transport Protocol, for ferrying transport streams, and generally these are MPEG-2 transport streams, between locations and over constrained or unreliable links. So we've continued to invest in our adoption of the SRT protocol across our entire platform by adding it wherever we can to remove the dependency we previously had on multicast transport streams and adding the option for SRT secured transport streams to act as that linchpin between us and any deployments we might have on other premises, across the internet or in the cloud. And we've also worked with the creators of SRT to help where we can contribute back improvements to that open source project, often around build structure, but also helping to provide some feedback on bugs and occasional patches. So we see SRT as a critical component in being able to continue to give you guys what you need to be able to work on less reliable interconnections, perhaps switches that aren't designed at the highest tolerances for packet loss and packet delay. And this has been dropped into every single product we have now. So all of our products can natively accept SRT inputs and produce SRT outputs. And we'll touch a little bit more on that in what that means for Synergy Air. But in Synergy Capture specifically, what that means is you can ingest SRT streams just as if they were any other of our supported streams, but also the preview streams that come back give us the ability to be protected over SRT, which makes traversing firewalls easier. It makes working on client stations that perhaps aren't on a dedicated broadcast multicast network. It's easier for those to access those streams and see them. So it really has gone across the entirety of our product range and added specific enhancements to individual products like Synergy Capture, where those preview streams are now SRT. But apart from these platform-wide changes, the first specific example of what we've improved in Synergy Capture is by adopting the all-GPU pipeline technology we pioneered with earlier versions of Synergy Air. I believe back with Synergy Air 12 was the first to adopt this. We've now added the ability for the processing pipeline of Synergy Capture to move in GPU. Now this happened quite a while ago now. The end of 2020 we made this change. So with the adoption of 8K support and the ability to record in 8K, we did find that it was very, very easy to overload the CPU inside Synergy Capture. So as we got to our second generation implementation of 8K support inside Synergy Capture, we've added this GPU pipeline mode, which really helps us more reliably and stably continue to do all the processing that we need to do by shifting that workload into the GPU, which is often more optimized for these media-centric mechanisms. And in combination with the Daniel 2 codec, which will compress natively in 422 and 444 and in 10 and 12-bit on the GPU, we can do all of that processing directly on this appropriate technology, reducing the requirement for really significantly powerful Intel CPUs and letting us bring the footprint of such equipment down a bit further. So this GPU processing really is fundamental to what we've done, and we've continued tuning that in the latest releases to make sure that you really could just take, I believe Jan was working with some quad-core i7s and a decent NVIDIA GPU to do mobile 8K recording. So this is a huge step change that we've implemented in Capture, having had so much success, having performed that GPU optimization in Air, and is something that's become really important to our technology stack. On top of being able to do such in-GPU processing, one of the things that we've wanted to do for a while and have now implemented in the very latest release is what we call direct transcode mode. So if you have a stream, for example, in SRT, that is pre-encoded by a downstream encoder, and you still want the richness of Synergy Capture to be able to register that straight into Archive for edit while ingest workflows, you want it to produce proxies so that you can have people working on lower bit rates, then you can use this direct transcode mode with the full capture pipeline for registration and on-the-fly proxy generation, but not actually be re-encoding what you get in. I mean, you're not going to improve the quality of what comes in over a compressed stream. The best you can do is preserve it exactly as it is, which reduces processor loading on the machine, but it also retains the exact quality you have. So we have this mode now, which means that you can take much, much smaller VMs, for example, in the cloud, and actually catch those streams. If you're not generating proxies, you can actually just get away with a 2 vCPU machine without even a GPU in it, in direct transcode only mode, which we've done in the office here in testing. So it's a hugely powerful way to actually still have the richness of the capture pipeline, but without the overhead of an encode if you don't want one or you want to preserve quality. So that's a big update that we've done very recently in the latest version of Synergy Capture, which we know customers will be looking forwards to. And then the final thing I want to touch upon for Synergy Capture is that we've added webcam support, native audio device inputs, and what we call WDM, Windows Mode drivers, as input devices. So if you have a card that shows up, for example, normally inside Skype or other third-party tools, you put the drivers on, it's not an officially supported Synergy board with first-party support like DeltaCast, DeckLinks, AJA boards, but you've got it working in Windows, we can now see that board and use it, which can be very useful, for example, if new boards come out from vendors and we haven't incorporated that into an older version of Synergy, or you have some other board hardware that you're interested in using, we can do that with WDM mode. And similarly, with the rise of the pandemic, we found the ability to actually have a webcam directly attached into that same pipeline to do instant live recording that will register has been very, very valuable. So, webcams obviously aren't the thing that a broadcast professional would normally be using, but in a pinch, if it gets you that message back from wherever it needs to be, we've heard that that can be really, really useful. So if you weren't aware of that now, that's my call out for adding those features inside Synergy Capture. Of course, we've added far, far more than I've listed here. I am relatively tight on time. This is the biggest presentation of all of the things we've got today because it's so important. But for me to list through everything, I'd probably stay on camera for an hour. With that, we'll move on to the next product. So the next product that I want to talk to you about is Synergy Air. So Synergy Air, a product dear to me as the product manager of Synergy Air, has had 2 major versions since I was last at IBC. We've just released version 14 of Synergy Air in July before the last IBC in 2019. So since then, we've done 2 major version releases. We released version 15, which has then been rebranded as version 21.2, where we began labeling the approximate month and year of release of products into the version number, so it makes it a little bit easier for customers to consistently understand where they are on that timeline with our products. So we've released that version 15, 21.2, and now last week, 2 weeks ago maybe, we've released version 21.9 of Synergy Air. So 2 major versions where we've been enhancing that product that have come out since. And again, what I can talk to you about is just the key call-outs of what we've done. So, much like I said with Synergy Capture and a theme that you will see a number of times over, we've added 8K support to Synergy Air. So what was prototypical at the last IBC we did is now fully in product. And 8K is a supported format in Synergy Air. Synergy Air already had the accelerated GPU pipelines, so actually it was born with more capability in 8K than Capture was, which had to integrate that work to improve. So Air was ready for it as soon as we added those formats and has now shipped for a couple of versions with native 8K support, which is very, very useful and very future-proof for your investment. On top of that, once again, we have a cross-platform stack of protocols and components with the Synergy tools. So where we've improved the NDI toolkitting, we've improved the the SRT toolkitting, that's mapped across into Synergy Air as well in exactly the same way it was kept up to date in Synergy Capture. So the latest versions of Synergy Air have the latest SRT library inputs from the latest stable releases of that, but also continue as well to support SRT as a native backhauling protocol. So when you now look inside Synergy Air Control and you see the mini preview windows, those are actually traveling to your control station over SRT. There's no configuration required, it just works. It's able to traverse firewalls more easily. It automatically makes that an error-corrected connection and removes the requirement to be drawing that over UDP that can cause some glitches and problems where there might be some packet loss. That's all automatically protected now through the implementation of SRT end-to-end there. It also means you can actually monitor the preview and queued and on-air outputs from Synergy Air directly in other tools because that SRT stream can be just picked up from something like Multiviewer. All of that's documented on our website on how to do it, and I believe even called out specifically in some of the What's New features for the Air 21.2 that introduced that part. So yeah, this is a stack that shares all of these components and has a lot of power in those tools. But you know, when we start then looking at well, what's unique about Synergy Air and what have we done in these major versions that isn't across all the platforms, Synergy Air has trailblazed in implementing the first telemetry systems and metrics coordinates over REST that allow us to actually read in real time what's happening inside the Air engine, right down to details such as how many live frames did the Air engine ingest in the last second, how many did it outgest, how many arrived late or left late, what's the average disk performance time on that Air engine while it's operating. So we can eat all of these facts and figures and details and produce amazingly beautiful, detailed and useful telemetry dashboards. So you can see on this slide here over my shoulder, that's showing how we've ingested those metrics into Elasticsearch and Grafana to produce real-time tracking of what that system is doing. We document those metrics on side Synergy Open, so you can consume those metrics into any telemetry stack that you currently have. Our favorite is Elasticsearch, so we have example scripts that will ingest that natively to Elasticsearch right now already on the Synergy GitHub, or we can work with you to help you understand how to eat them into other things like InfluxDB or perhaps Amazon CloudWatch. So these telemetry metrics are so valuable that it actually removes your need to keep an eye on the Synergy Air log in the way that perhaps you were doing previously, because this machine-readable, real-time metrics give you kind of time-sliced data, allowing you to see, you know, have I had any playout drops in the last day, and can help you get really picture-perfect output from your engines. So the telemetry stuff is really cool, and actually Air has led the way, and this is being adopted in other products as well, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. Moving on from the telemetry output, we also enhance the operator workflows. So we've been seeing more and more customers do more and more with automation, very critical in the pandemic as well, and also particularly important as people move more and more things into the cloud. So we've released a new version of Synergy Traffic Gateway, rewritten from the ground up, that allows much more configuration of workflows and the ability to operate customized scripting with PowerShell commandlets that let you modify your workflow and adapt to business logic rules in a way that you might need in advanced automated workflows. What that caused was the ability for us to do more things with placeholders in Synergy Archive, and we've exposed more details through the Air control interface to let customers see how these placeholders are working. Does the control panel have an active connection to the database? Is it all working? Where is my next placeholder? So as an operator, I can spin through the list to see if I can take a break or understand how long I've got until I get to the next thing. So it's really powerful enhancements to this user experience in the operator interface, and that continues to evolve. And we see this as a very valuable enhancement to the product. Spinning on, though, because time is ticking through this presentation and I can't run forever, we turn to Synergy Multiviewer. So the last time there was a physical NAB show, we were really thrilled to win a Product of the Year award for our Multiviewer product. Last time we were actually in Vegas, we collected the award, and we hope to be at Vegas again next year, where maybe we'll have a shot at an award again. But in the meantime, we've not waited. We've continued releasing versions of Multiviewer, and we've knocked out 2 major versions of Multiviewer as well since the last trade show. So some of the call-outs of things we've done with that, getting familiar now, Multiviewer supports 8K. We've added this across the product line, and we can now input and output 8K. Obviously, it takes a lot of power. We'll talk a little bit about how we achieved addressing that in a minute. But again, we've added SRT upgrades and NDI. We've seen a huge amount of people loving our Multiviewer, not only because it supports technologies like NDI, but because it can do 2110, 2022.6, NDI, SRT, and vanilla MPEG transport streams. So you have a massive amount of cross-capability in the same product. So as we've upgraded these tools and toolkits throughout the entire platform, that's improved what we can do and how we can support that. The SRT capability alone of Synergy Multiviewer has proven incredibly valuable, and there are some things we've done to that that have made that even more valuable in the very latest release of Synergy Multiviewer that's coming out right now. So this newest version of Synergy Multiviewer has actually implemented the next generation of telemetry metrics following on from Synergy Air. So the latest version of Synergy Air supports the same interface, but Multiviewer has now added this, and we can drill right in to the statistics about each SRT connection that Multiviewer is consuming. So we can then see live feedback on how much error correction is being carried out, how big are the buffers, how long is it taking to return the signal across that SRT link. Because to choose how to set your error correction, you need to understand the nature of that link. And Multiviewer can do that for you now and give you real-time statistics, which are, again, consumable and chartable, to give you an insight into, do I have a problem? And do I perhaps need to go to backup before we hit an issue? Because we can see trouble coming. It's always much better to switch over by your choice at a moment of your choosing than wait for things to just outright fail and then have to panic. So all the SRT telemetry metrics are a really powerful addition in Multiviewer. But because we've been improving this number of inputs, one of the things we've then had to do is increase the number of outputs. So a really great enhancement that we added to the previous major version of Multiviewer a year ago was what we call multi-layout output and also the half-height stacking. So if you've now got far more signals than you can eat in one Synergy Multiviewer, you can use half-height stacking to aggregate multiple multiviewers. So you can offload, say, 16 or 24 streams or maybe a few 8K streams to a dedicated multiviewer and then just import that as a single composite into another multiviewer, allowing distribution of loading, but where you have a multiviewer that is perhaps underloaded, because of course with H.264 acceleration in NVIDIA, we can actually get a lot of streams decoded in a multiviewer. We have multi-layout output, so you can take one Air engine, perhaps lay 8 or 12 signals into each layout, but have 2 or 3 layouts and output them as discrete outputs. So you can bring those into multi-monitor workflows, or you can stream perhaps larger quad split views of signals and then be able to switch them, but from a single multiviewer. It's an incredibly powerful feature that we added since the last time we were in Vegas and IBC and since we won that award. So it's a really, really great enhancement. What we did find, though, is when we added multi-layout, we can now actually do even more throughput. Customers can output to more screens, icons and PyCons and players can be larger, so they want to do more. And with the adoption of 8K, we found that also drives forwards hugely the power loading that people want. So we actually, in the very latest version of Multiviewer that's coming out right now, added a GPU pipeline. Exactly the same way Air started and Capture followed has moved into Multiviewer. So where we're doing compositing, decoding in that GPU, we can stay in that GPU. And there's a fantastic blog post and something from our TechCon back in February, March that we did, showing the real details of what performance alterations we got from going into GPU and how we can actually stack 4 GPUs in a machine to achieve 100 HD channel monitoring in one machine. And there's a lot of detail in there, so I'd encourage you to look at that video or read the open post, because I've run out of time in this presentation, but there's a lot more I haven't been able to say. So please do take a look at Synergy Open, where we continue without the requirement for a login, so you can find it through your favourite search engine, Google, and you can look through there and find all of our manuals, API details, and all the posts we put from events like this. So there's a full written up version of the multi-viewer performance details and all of the things of what's new in greater depth and detail for our products. And of course, all the products I haven't had time to talk to you about, such as the brand new Synergy subtitling service, where we offer first-party subtitling services, or the enhancements we've made to tools that have been around forever and are perennial favourites like Synergy Desktop, the Synergy Archive. There's a lot we've been doing, and we would love to answer any questions about this at the end of this event. So if I've missed anything or you want to go back to a product, do let us know. This is being done right now live, so we'll be able to answer these questions for real at the end, and we can talk about any other products, or you can reach out to us to just schedule, as Andrew said in his version. We will happily talk to you directly because we haven't been able to see you at the show. So that ends my partner briefing that I would have been loving to have been doing on the show floor, but have had to do with no audience, talking to a camera in the office in Bristol. So now it's a chance for me to have a short break and hand you over to a package that Daniela recorded the other day from the office in Munich, where she's talking about the price list changes we've made since we last saw you guys. So let's hear from Daniela.
Hello, this is Daniela, and I'm here to talk to you about some of the more recent price list changes that we've made. We introduced a new price list in July of this year, and I am here to take you through it. So some of the main price list changes we've got are in respect to product updates. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our current package changes, new product packages, subscription availability and cross upgrades, and what has been made end of life. Firstly, current product package changes, which are of great importance, would be the Archive and desktop changes. Archive S has been replaced by Archive Pro, and this price has been increased, but there are more workspace clients that are included, and Archive M has been replaced by Archive Enterprise. This has also been priced higher and also includes more workspace clients as well, so it's now 10 there. There are also multi-database and cross upgrades available. The desktop and Synergy Access licenses desktops pricing have been reduced when purchasing the new archive licenses. Also, if we look at TV Pack, there have been some small changes there as well. Convert has been removed, as well as Live Pro, and a separate SLA is also needed for support and maintenance. And just a reminder, TV Pack is not designed for virtualization or cloud operations, and there are license restrictions, so please take a look at page 16 of your price list for that. Other product package changes we have are in Synergy Air. We are now offering a new bundling of the products and options under familiar labels outlined on page 3 of the product price list. Air is the same as it ever was, but importantly this comes without Titler at a lower price point. Air Pro is as above, but with the Titler option included. We also have introduced Air Ultimate as above, but also with all the options needed to support subtitling of a channel using our new subtitling service. And what else is new? New product packages include subtitling, as I've just mentioned, the Synergy subtitle service options such as Subtitle Service Controller, Teletext Subtitle Encoder, DVB Subtitle Encoder and Transport Stream Muxer, and these are included on page 6 of your price list. And Air Ultimate is including playout and automation with titler branding with one channel of subtitling included. We also have a lot of cross upgrades and subscription options available now as well. As long as you remain under SLA, we offer a paid-for migration and cross upgrade paths such as Solo. There's a cross upgrade to Air available. Solo and Titler, there's a cross upgrade to Air Pro. And Air Pro, there's a cross upgrade to Air Ultimate. There's also multi-database and cross upgrades available for Archive. You can also upgrade your business class SLA to first class as well. And all of the Synergy products are available as annual subscriptions or monthly rentals, so that really can get your OPEX down. Now we move on to discontinued products. Solo, Duo and Quad have been end of life since July of this year. We now offer migration to the lower entry point for Air without titleist Synergy Air, which will effectively become the Solo replacement. But this offers all of the enterprise value that you'd expect from the Air Pro, and also includes virtualization and redundancy options, which Solo, Duo and Quad just didn't do. We've also discontinued Live Pro, and we will continue to support these customers who have ongoing support agreements, but we no longer sell those. Please also note that software updates only, such as Economy Class, has not been sold since 2020. So if you do need any quotes or you have any questions, commercial or otherwise, please do ask Synergy or your Synergy partner, and we'll be very happy to help you. Thank you very much for your attention. Take care. Bye-bye.
So you've just heard from Daniela about the price list changes, and we're keeping the pace up here in this event. So we're going to move from this very quickly to hear from Mr. Simon Pilbeam. You're watching this live on YouTube. We've been putting a lot of effort into making YouTube videos, and he's going to update you on how we're doing with that. So Simon, take it away.
Hello and welcome to my lockdown office here in the UK. I'm going to tell you about one of the features that you may or may not have seen on Synergy, and this is particularly going to be about the Synergy YouTube videos that we did about 4 or 5 years ago now. So they're getting quite old, but they're still very, very relevant, and what we thought was we'd try and update those. So my task over the next couple of months is going to be to try and update and give you as many new features, new interesting facts about our own brilliant software that's out there in the broadcast environment, and all the applications slowly one by one, so that you can actually sit down, spend some time viewing them without having to have a training session, without having to have any of the complicated elements that go with getting used to how to use software. So initially they're going to be very simple, short and concise elements that will take you through each part of the application we're talking about. And the first ones I'm going to try and concentrate on are our bestseller, obviously Synergy Air, our automated playout system. So that's going to be coming to you very shortly, so watch out for that. If you've not seen the videos that are already there, even though some of them are slightly outdated now and slightly different versions, there is a lot in there that you can still find very, very useful. They're all still relevant, they just have been updated by version numbers and features that we've added since even 4 years ago. So, you know, things have moved on. And if you're looking for something to do during lockdown and you can't get into the office, you can't do those urgent jobs, maybe spend just a few minutes, and hopefully that's all they're going to be, 5 or 6 minute chunks of interesting facts about what the applications are and how we can use them, and sit there on YouTube. Here's the address you're going to need. There are 2 ways of searching for Synergy applications on YouTube. The first one is to go to the Synergy TV site, where you'll find lots and lots of videos, or alternatively you could actually search specifically for the item you were looking for by just typing into their search. A valuable resource, I'm sure you'll agree. And if you want even more information about Synergy applications and products, then go to open.synergy.com, which is another fantastic resource full of information, manuals, all of the things that you need to be able to run your business effectively. And with that, I'll hand you back.
A seamless join there from our broadcast professionals. So, I mean, yeah, you've just heard from Simon there. I'm actually genuinely looking forward to seeing the updated versions. I have a feeling that I'll be dragged into filming at least one product's set's worth in our updated studio here in Bristol. But we know, we've seen, you know, there are thousands of views on these clips, so we know it's worthwhile making them for you. But if you have any feedback you'd like to give us, if you think we should try and touch on some more things, do always send this to us. And similarly, if you'd like to hear the lovely tones of Simon joining us in the studio live again, I'm reminding you, send in your questions. You can do them the old-fashioned way through email, by emailing just the sales@synergy.com. email address, we'll catch them and get them through to Simon here in the office, who's helping direct this. Or you can use the slightly more modern but still somewhat dated mechanism of Twitter by just using the hashtag #SynergySales, or basically any use of the word synergy. We'll find that question and get that to me. And Jan, of course, will be joining us in this studio virtually through SRT to put these questions between the pair of us at the end of this. So that's hearing about how we're going to be updating our online packages. Let's now move to what would happen if someone wanted to go a bit more in-depth, perhaps, and go through the managed training systems that we do. Andrew's going to update us on that now.
Hello everybody, Andrew here. I want to talk about our partner certification training. As we all know, there's a lot to Synergy. There are many tips, tricks and secrets that can be found in the documentation on open.synergy.com as well as on our GitHub. But the best way to hit the ground running as a Synergy partner is to let us train you and or your staff. And even if you've already been trained, it's worth checking back every couple of years because, as you know, we add new features and enhancements all the time. The training's intended for technical staff, whether or not in a sales role, and it does require that candidates have knowledge of the modern Windows environment, storage technologies, broadcasting technology, networking and video. We offer the training for three main reasons. Firstly, to enable new partners to speak knowledgeably about Synergy and to identify ways that Synergy products can benefit their customers. This means that the candidate will be able to recognize opportunities based on what he's learned and also be able to specify the Synergy solution that best works for his customer. Secondly, to offer an opportunity for candidates to learn about the complete Synergy product range in an easy, speedy and structured way. This online course is 5 days of classroom exercises and lab sessions. Candidates are provided with access to a cloud instance and a complete set of Synergy software, and we install everything step by step, as well as explaining each piece in detail. Each candidate also gets a 1-month evaluation key for our whole range to install on their own system for further practice and evaluation. And thirdly, to certify our partners as trusted representatives of Synergy in their market. A Synergy certificate shows sales prospects that Synergy supports and endorses this dealer, a vital sign of confidence. And we acknowledge this confidence by offering fully trained dealers our best levels of discount to ensure that when the training pays off, it really pays off. A fully trained partner is in an excellent position to add his own value to our software, and that is something we encourage. We're currently accepting applications for our next training session, which begins on the 17th of January. So if you haven't yet been trained, or it's been a few years since your last course, drop us a line at sales@synergy.com. Hurry though, as seats are limited. See you at the next training, and keep safe.
Well, I mean, it's great to hear about that from Andrew, and this is one of the things that the pandemic has actually perhaps forced a change of working that is serving our customers and partners better, because being able to work with these powerful virtual machines in the cloud has proven really, really valuable, and it lets us do more flexible things than we could do physically lugging equipment to countries to try and reach customers. So we can have more people joining. And of course, as he says, space is limited because we like to keep a really good tight ratio of instructors to people. So while there is limitless availability of equipment in the cloud, we do only have so many places because actually it's important to keep the instructor to student ratio quite tight so that you get the support you need as you do those courses. So it's a really brilliant update there, and I do encourage customers to take part of that. Moving on though, during the course of the lockdown, life carries on, and one of the great things I get to do now is bring this package up for a person that's going to be introducing himself as a new member in the Synergy team. And one of the things I wasn't expecting was to get a package sent to us for this event that includes horse riding. So let's run this video and you'll get to meet the newest Synergy team member.
Hello everyone, I'm Mike Yefimov, sales manager for Russia, CIS countries and Eastern Europe. I replaced Tanya Zolotutskaya in this role, and I have already managed to get to know some of you. It's a pity we cannot do it in person at the exhibition, and I hope in the next year we will definitely do. And while I'm in Moscow, it's already snowy around here. Ostankino Television Center is behind my back, and this is Vladimir Kazmich Zvorykin, the inventor of color television. A few words about myself. I'm 34 years old. I graduated from the University of Cinema and Television in St. Petersburg with a degree in audiovisual technology. After that, I studied science for some time. For over 15 years, I have designed and built broadcasting and television complexes in Russia and CIS. Then I was engaged in virtual studios. I thought for a long time about what to tell about my work before Synergy, and one cool business trip came to my mind. In Kyrgyzstan, I needed to deliver the Korean equipment to the transmitting site when we finished with the studio. It turned out that this could only be done on a horse, 20 kilometers to the mountains there and back. It's good that as a child I rode a horse. Everything ended well, the equipment worked, and we went on air that night. I mean, anything can happen at work. And I really like when exciting tasks arise, no matter how difficult they may seem at the first glance.
Mike looked genuinely happy riding a horse across the snow there, and we're really happy to have him joining the team. You'll hear from him in a package of his own coming up a little bit later, but next you get to hear from me, this time pre-recorded. There's a limit to how much I like to do live, so I'm going to give you an update, what we call a TechCon update, where we give you a little bit more technical detail about something. So let's hear from me yesterday. Hi, welcome to this technical conference update, where I'm going to talk a little bit about something you may have heard a bit in some marketing events, the SRT webinar we did a little while ago, and just generally perhaps talking to some of us from Synergy. So you may have heard the term Synergy Cloud. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit more insight into what does that mean, what is the Synergy Cloud, and what are we doing with the cloud in general, and how do we think we're going to move forwards with this platform. What would it mean for you as customers, and what would it mean for you as partners? So what we've identified over the course of analysing the needs of our customers and our future strategy is we see mainly three kinds of deployments. We have what we would consider a more traditional on-premise deployment, as we've labelled it here. And an on-premise deployment really actually means much more under customer control deployment. So whether the customer has decided to actually host this inside a public cloud themselves, and so it's in the cloud, the important thing is that it's entirely customer managed, and generally this is on-premise. This is something we of Synergy have worked with for years. It's the model that we were born into, you could say, and that we've been delivering to for the entire 18 years that we've been a company now. It's something we understand, and it's something that customers like, and it's a mode of installation that's not going away anytime soon as well. And I want to be completely clear, we're there for you, and this is something we're actually going to lean into as a strength of Synergy, that we do offer that, and we will continue to offer that because we feel it is still very important to have that. But you'd have to be completely invisible to the world to not have noticed that there's been a lot more talk of the cloud, and during the course of the pandemic, of course, it's difficult to install equipment, it's difficult to move forwards without coming into contact with the public cloud. And that's really useful when you can't commission equipment, when you can't purchase things in time, where you can't put staff in danger by making them rack things in. It's really shown people why the public cloud can be a major business benefit to customers. What we want to do is put things into the public cloud, but actually retain control as Synergy. And this is something that's quite new for us. The idea that we would run a hosted service, the idea that you could access the great Synergy tooling that we've been building for years, but you don't need to learn how to commission a server, you don't need to provision storage, you don't need to configure a network, is something we've heard from some customers as something that's really compelling to them. It may not be suitable for all customers. It may have regulatory issues, which means that customers need to retain things in their countries or within their control or jurisdiction. It could just be that customers are a number of times actual broadcasters, and they want to retain control of being a broadcaster. But sometimes it does make sense. It may be that that is for use cases outside of our traditional broadcast vertical. Maybe people would find Synergy Cloud more useful if they work in marketing or if they work in corporate events or other corporate messaging. So, we've identified this market section that we delivered to and have delivered to since the day we were incorporated and are interested in moving into. And then there's also the kind of third variation of all of this, which we call hybrid. And that's where we see customers that are not actually clearly in any one camp and maybe want to get benefits from both, which is actually perhaps the more compelling and interesting version for existing customers that might be working broadcasters today. So we are working to launch some of our tooling, eventually all of our tooling, in a hosted model as part of Synergy Cloud. But there will be customers that might retain some business critical elements on premise, but perhaps want to leverage some of the benefits a hosted service could bring. So we can put and are putting infrastructure in place that will allow people to remote air engines that are still on premise, but they could use the hosted Synergy Cloud as a trusted intermediary component for negotiating that connectivity without requiring a complex firewall configuration the customer needs to figure out themselves. We would also find that customers are already using hybrid. So we've been working for a while with our telemetry, and we actually have been offering people the ability to stream telemetry to us instead of running their own telemetry systems on premise. And that has proven quite useful, but customers want us to go further. They want us to increase the SLA on that. They want to increase the flexibility, make the onboarding smoother. So it's an area where by investing in our hosted service, we can actually bring back features from that then to still serve people on premise with perhaps less critical things such as telemetry and data health monitoring, or making it easier to achieve remote mechanisms or remote workflows. So for us, this whole strategy piece around Synergy Cloud means that even as we move some things into hosted, it's not a zero-sum game. As we add features to one thing, they'll come back to another, and that's really, really valuable for all customers. But what I want to do right now is give you a preview of what the first tool we'll be rolling out into our hosted service looks like. And we're currently calling this Synergy Cloud Desktop. So for people that have used our traditional and much-loved Synergy Desktop application, or people that have used the web interface that we have called Synergy Workspace that gives a view on archive, this should look kind of familiar. But what we've done is we've done a lot of work on the technology underneath this, because my vision at Synergy is that even if you move to the cloud, you should not have a compromised experience. You should still be able to work with media, edit with media in a way that doesn't feel in any way compromised. So we've put a lot of effort into how can we build up this mechanism so that we can do this. And so if you look at this demo with Cloud Desktop, you can see here that the acceleration and the maneuvering that we have on this demo clip, where we are live streaming these assets from Ireland to my desk in Bristol here, you can see that we get incredible performance, even over an hour of previously unwitnessed on this site content. We cleared all the caches, there's no trickery here. That means that we really do feel this is a no compromise installation, and it gives the same performance and benefits of if we were actually running against an H.264 file on premise with unoptimized clients. So it's a really, really impressive technical demo that we're now uniting into this tool to help us launch a platform with a really compelling implementation to begin with. And because this is a technical conference update, here's a view of how we've done this a little bit. So we've actually put a lot of effort into building an all-new stack for moving the intelligence for how we deal with object storage and cloud-hosted storage to slice material nearer to the storage and optimize what we deliver out to the client, so we can deliver rapid keyframe scrubbing across unknown hours of content that has yet to ever be cached on a premise. We pre-slice things into cloud delivery optimized slices around 6 to 7 megabits for a full HD stream, sliced into editable sections that we can then stream ahead and deliver for a really tactile experience. And it means we've already got edit important mechanisms like JKL and even audio scrubbing as we move through content that we think customers expect from taking a professional product like Synergy and moving that to the cloud. So we've done a lot of technical things there to make that work. And then we've linked that into this tool I've been demoing here, which is a brand new cross-platform cloud-optimized client. It's a huge investment we've made at Synergy to try and launch this and to make sure that the tooling we then deliver isn't just cloud-washed, where someone's taken some existing components and rinsed it through a virtual machine and called it the cloud. This is some really interesting ground-up technology that I'm really proud of, and the team have done a great job on, and look forward to next year bringing this out to the marketplace. So that's an update on what Synergy Cloud is and how that's going to hopefully help serve you as customers and partners. If you have any questions, we have a Q&A session at the end, and you'll find myself live in the Bristol office ready to answer them. So thanks very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. So that was me yesterday, giving you an update on some of the technical aspects of what we're launching there. As I mentioned at the end, questions can be put to us, or you can talk to us offline after this, or if you're interested in trying to get into early access beta stuff, let us know. Moving swiftly on though, I'm now ready to introduce a package filmed in that same office upstairs, looking back at my desk, from Mr. Michael Jacobs, who's our Head of Professional Services. So he's going to talk to you now about Synergy Professional Services.
Hello, you already know who I am, but for those of you who do not, my name is Mike Jacobs and I'm the Head of Professional Services. I'm talking to you from our offices at Bristol in the UK. This brief presentation is a broad overview of what professional services are available for you to use at Synergy, just in case you haven't had an opportunity to take advantage of them yet. So let's get on with the presentation. So what can Synergy Professional Services offer to you? If you're just starting out with our software or planning a completely new business opportunity, then we can provide system architecture and design, where we work with you on how to deploy our software onto your existing infrastructure or determine what your new infrastructure may need to look like. This could be for on-premise, virtual, or public cloud-based deployments. We can also provide workflow analysis and help map your existing business requirements to Synergy software features to ensure your staff have the functionality they need or to deliver efficiencies through new practices. Perhaps our software doesn't currently use something you want, then you can always commission us to carry out custom development to add this functionality. Or if you have your own in-house development team, we can support that team if they are working with our software APIs to help them deliver a fit-for-purpose solution. When you have your solution deployed, then we can deliver remote or on-site training for your journalists, editors, operations teams, and technical staff, etc., as either an off-the-shelf course covering the product's features or tailored to your particular workflows. If you're already working with our software but want to upgrade or expand, or perhaps you're facing some challenges which you can't just seem to nail down, then the services you may wish to commission could be installation and configuration for our software. So this could be adding an extra channel of Synergy Air or another import job to Synergy Convert. Perhaps troubleshooting a systems issue with getting the expected output from our software and determining if there's an environmental or infrastructure issue at play. If we're providing a large number of deliverables, or we're working as part of a larger project team, then you can also have a dedicated contact who can interface with your and other third parties' teams through our project management service. Perhaps you want assistance with running a successful POC to ensure that everything goes smoothly and to achieve your required outcome, or perhaps you don't have the internal resources available to carry out the deployment. And finally, we can help with supporting or upgrading from a version of our software which is too old and falls outside of our current version supported policy. As you can see, Professional Services is here to assist you at any point, whether you're at the beginning of your journey or if you're at the end of your tether. So how does it work? Well, Synergy Professional Services are based on a per hour cost with a certain minimum amount of hours requiring to be purchased depending on the service. And when you engage with us, there are generally two ways in which we can deliver the service. The first is a fixed package of work to, for example, deliver a new feature into an existing product, and this would have an agreed deliverable. The second, which we have found very useful to customers, is through the purchase of a pool of professional services hours, which can then be used for any of the available services. And this method provides a level of flexibility to an engagement and can allow a more dynamic and reactive way of working with the team. If you do decide that professional services can deliver something useful to you and your business, then in addition to myself, there are other Synergy resources which you would most likely interact with. We have Jason Hewlett, who is a man of many years of experience, who's trained as a BBC broadcast engineer and has worked on OBs from all over the world. Jason is our delivery manager and provides a lot of the training for our customers. So if you want to know how linear time code is added to a tape or how to 3D print a candle holder, then he's going to be your man. Secondly, we've got Simon Pilby. Simon is another veteran of the broadcast industry who spent his formative years as a BBC audio assistant and then moved on to delivering radio and television studio operations training to fresh BBC recruits. Simon is also the joint product manager for Synergy Air and Synergy Desktop, as well as seemingly having a never-ending amount of dad jokes. And then we have Yaroslav Korniets. So Yaroslav is the youngest member of the team, but still an experienced individual who has moved from Synergy support to become the product manager for Synergy Multiviewer, Synergy Route, and Synergy Traffic Gateway. So hopefully you now know a bit more about Synergy Professional Services, and if you would like assistance from us, then please do get in touch either through your account manager or directly through this email address, ps@synergy.com. So that's everything, and thank you very much for listening.
So you've heard from Mike, and now we're moving on to our last package. So the final package we've got is from the newly minted Mike Efimov, and he's going to talk to you right now about the importance of SLA and why that's valuable.
Hello, dear colleagues. I'm Mike Efimov, and we met just a couple of videos ago. I will touch on a crucial topic which gives goosebumps to us, but they arise for different reasons. This is especially true for end users. Indeed, why it's so essential for us, our partners and customers? Well, we live in a computer world where changes are increasing day by day. This process cannot be stopped, and the concept of software-defined television just implies that we exist in the manufacturer's paradigm of operating systems and hardware, and we are changing with them. On the other hand, television never stops and requires high reliability. The sum of these factors leads us to the fact that we are obliged to provide high reliability in a rapidly changing world. But beyond that, we strive to protect our users' investment in their initial software purchase so that it doesn't disappoint. User support is critical at every step of the way, and we especially appreciate your efforts to provide local support in your native languages. All these become possible only if the current status of the SLA is maintained. We have two models of SLA. The first one we call the business class SLA. It includes support during business hours on Central European Time and product updates to the latest versions. The second is a first class SLA. It provides 24/7 support. The first is more cost-effective and works well for most users. The second is good at the initial stage of cooperation with us and in the presence of large projects. One point that begs the question in this case is whether you have staff who can provide round-the-clock support since the user will be waiting for your response in the first place. Another important topic that many of you have encountered recently is the SLA recovery policy. We understand that users have a lot of doubts about this, so we want to give you the tools to work with these objections. The fact is that you and we are constantly working without stopping. Programmers and engineers work. Thus, we emphasize that we are protecting both our resources and resources of our partners in this case. In other words, these are not some fines, but protection. For example, of your investments in the allocation of individual specialists' work to work with Synergy. We are on the same side of the barricades in this case, let me say. This recovery service is charged at 10% of the product price per year. I want to emphasize that concept of recovery doesn't mean that we are proposing to buy our licenses again. Instead, we provide a comfortable recovery tool without repurchase. Customers without SLA are entitled to any supported version of the software at the date of sale or last point of SLA purchased. But Synergy is not obliged to provide software for older software versions in case of machine migration or loss of license. Hopefully, however long ago a Synergy license was purchased, we can help preserve the asset investment. We have customers running Synergy Express HD from 2008 quite happily. You may have noticed that we have changed the version numbering scheme. It's now tied to the release year. Thus, users will receive versions that come out within the year's framework in which their SLA is in force. But this doesn't mean that the customer who purchased version 50 before introducing the new numbering scheme should buy some additional cross upgrades for example, version 21. The formula of calculating the duration of the SLA has not changed. It also represents the current month plus the current month minus 1. I also want to remind you that access to the user portal my.synergy.com is also regulated based on the SLA. I want to summarize with some pros and cons. Is it possible to live during specific periods without renewals? Well, yes. We understand that super professionals know our software perfectly, while some cannot afford to update themselves annually. Sometimes such schemes work, but you may encounter an unforeseen problem at one point. Then the user gets the reaction like, this is bad software. No, it's not like that. It's just that changes have taken place in the infrastructure that surrounds this software. If the user is not experienced enough, he should be persuaded to use the SLA at least during the initial purchase to avoid the impossibility of solving his problems. We trust that you, as our partners, will appreciate the importance of what has been said. SLA is an opportunity, first of all, to provide first-class service to the customer. Thank you.
So that is the last of all of our packages. And what remains now, and having gone to the trouble of doing this live, is the best bit of the event, which is we're opening ourselves to questions from any of you guys out there in the world. And we're going to spend a few minutes answering these. Jan's going to join me in a moment from Germany. So you still have some time to get some last-minute questions in or react to the questions that we're answering. And we'll hang around as long as there are questions to answer. So with that, I'm now going to introduce Mr. Jan Weigner, who you saw earlier from the introduction, who's going to be beaming in from Germany. Hi, Jan, can you hear me?
I can hear you clear and loud.
Fantastic. So what remains to get this party started then is the voice of Mr. Pilbeam to drop in and present to us the questions that the audience would like to hear. So Simon, what have you got for us?
Thank you very much. Well, I have some very interesting questions that have come in. These have genuinely come in. I have some standby questions as well, but these are the genuine questions. One of them actually managed to get in via YouTube chat, which is circumventing our entire system. But anyway, you got it through. The question is, will it be possible to change the audio matrix for all files in the playlist at once, which is obviously an air question. Somebody wants to change the audio matrix for all files with one single move.
You kind of can already. So the audio matrix has an option called the default. So you can go in there, and it's effectively changing the default so that it isn't there. Most people won't even have realized it's there because the default, if undefined, is straight through. But if you open the audio matrix and then change the default, then that means that you can do some strange things, kind of pull channel 7 and 8 down to 1 and 2 if you're trying to pull all the languages down by default. Change the default to whatever you want it to be that is not effectively straight through, and then whatever you put in will take the default. And that's that. You can actually even define the default matrix to apply for lives as well. So you can be shifting channels around. So you should be able to do what you want right now, but you actually have to set a default. And we'll pick the first default thing ticked in the editor when you put that in there. So easy. Next.
Excellent. That's dealt with that one. This one's probably more for Jan than for you, Lou. So this is about non-linear editing. What improvements do you have for non-linear editing, specifically plugins? And actually, it's related to us adding Daniel 2 as a plugin for DaVinci Resolve.
Oh God, yeah. I've been trying to get that arranged for the last 4 years. So it's not that we didn't actually want to have a plugin for DaVinci. Actually, it was one of the natural choices to go with because they had a GPU accelerated pipeline all the way through. So before we even try to go to Adobe Premiere and do it there, which we've done, we are banged on the door, well, gently knocked on the door of Blackmagic to have that done. And I've tried since for the last 4 years, and the answer is of theirs, they don't see a reason for facilitating this. There is no plugin interface to allow us to do our own plugins for Resolve. They have in the meantime allowed us to add a export plugin, but of course the interest would be actually an import plugin, not the export. You want to have that Daniel 2 media coming in and edit with it, and not just export to it from Resolve. We may do the export plugin just for fun to show that we can do it, but what I really wanted to do, of course, was an import plugin for Resolve. But there will be another NLE coming soon, or two, that we will support. I won't yet name what it is, but it's still a industry standard solution that will soon also support Daniel 2 import and export.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and do feel free to feed back to Blackmagic if you're a DaVinci customer and a Blackmagic customer. You know, the more you say to them, like, hey, can you do this? That's only going to help us. So,
Okay,
half
so
an
this
hour.
We
one.
had tens of thousands of
So I have another question.
we had
sorry.
tens of thousands of downloads for the plugin.
Yeah, tens of thousands of downloads of the Adobe plugin. So yeah, there's a lot of interest there.
Okay, so apologies. We have a slight delay on the line, which means Jan's not hearing us for a couple of seconds, but that's fine. There's a question now. I'm not sure who's going to take this one, but I'll leave this open to either of you. What's happened with AMD Radeon Pro GPU?
Sounds Jan to me. I think Jan will enjoy this one.
That's the
Okay.
question.
Well, yeah. So Radeon GPUs are generally supported as DirectX devices, but of course what we haven't included yet in final release is support for the AMD AMF framework, which basically is the equivalent of NVIDIA's NVENC. So basically hardware encode and decode acceleration of AMD cards. It is in the works. It has just not had the highest priority that we've had maybe with other things to do. The problem with the Radeon cards is they really don't offer any nicer or newer features than what we have with NVIDIA already. It just would be another option. Other stuff we have looked at and we are supporting is stuff, for instance, based on the new Alder Lake CPUs from Intel, which give us some interesting new features, which are, for instance, giving us the capability of doing 422 encode, and they still support interlace. The last card on the NVIDIA side that did support interlace encoding was the Pascal series, and that has come more or less to an end. Try to get a P2200 if you're lucky, because that's the last card that still can do interlace encoding. Neither Turing nor Ampere can, and there seems to be no return of interlace encoding capability either. But unfortunately, the Radeon doesn't do this either, so that's not helping us there on that front either.
Yeah. I mean, we're really, really keen for the Intel DGPU to be everything we've been hoping when that drops. So yeah, we've got our eye on the CES events, and we've done everything we can to prepare for it. So we just wait to see the reality, availability, pricing, and support inside server appliances, so we can just drop the card in and go. So yeah, but as always, like we listen to you guys as customers. So if this is something that's interesting to you, always let us know. And even if we can't react the first time we hear it, it's always valuable to hear it, because by the time we hear the second, third, fourth request that's the same, that helps us really move. So yeah, great question. What else have we got, Simon?
So this is probably quite a question we hear quite a lot, is why are the hardware system recommendations so old on Open?
I'll pick that one up because that's mainly my fault, and I'll stand by this one. So whenever we're updating our system recommendation and requirements, we always have to remember that, you know, for every new person installing a copy of Synergy Air, there'll be a person that's upgrading an old one. And so we take the view that those details that we post there are the older versions of hardware that we would expect people to be still using and upgrading. And they actually match what is in a load of our QA gear that we continue to certify and make sure it works. Because we feel it's always possible to take an older piece of equipment and then just look up what the modern equivalent is and be confident that will work. There is nothing that Intel have done or AMD have done on their CPUs that have disappeared. You know, the only thing we've had that happening has been with newer NVIDIA boards where they dropped interlace, and we call that out very clearly. So with an older set of specifications, I know that I can upgrade an existing machine, or I know I can map an older machine, if I'm buying new, onto newer hardware, which isn't possible backwards. If we were to write up there, our recommendations say it should be an Intel Gold CPU of this model number that's the current shipping model, you wouldn't have the confidence to be like, oh, but can I put that on my 5-year-old machine that I'm actually upgrading? So while we still have that old gear supported, that's where we're at. For example, we dropped off third generation Intel Core equipment and earlier than those E5 chips because AVX wasn't available on them, and that's now a requirement. So these are much like what you'd see, for those of you that remember PC games, what you get on boxes, what you get on the back of the box, where it would say minimum requirements, recommended, and those would always be quite old hardware, sometimes comically old, because there are not always people buying new. So those are really about making sure people know what's there. The other thing that's been really hard about this is, since we introduced many more options and features, particularly in Air, to have simulcast, 8K through to SD, which is such a huge variance, GPU pipeline optimizations, things that decode in GPU, it's just become completely impossible for us to really give any decent guidelines to say, this machine will do X channels. So we've put out various things in technical conferences saying how you can measure these things yourself. And of course, compared to 5 years ago, what now exists is an incredibly capable set of virtual machines in places like AWS and Azure, where for not many dollars at all, you can actually just try all the different variations of the latest combinations of hardware, later GPUs, older GPUs, more cores, less cores. So you really do need to actually model your workflow and say, I want to do X and I want to do it 9 times. Work out the combination of what you want. We can give you some advice through professional services about, well, actually, it costs a lot more in CPU to work with, say, a 422 encoded H.264 versus 420. So we can guide you, but you've got to model that workflow and then try it. So those recommendations really are like, will it work? Can the software run? Will I be able to upgrade what's working in place? And they're very much not about saying, oh, gosh, what will I buy tomorrow from Amazon to run on? Because it's almost impossible to answer that question. But we do keep trying to do things, and we do another YouTube video, because we had one for Multiviewer about, well, what can I do for some specific scenarios? Or there's the cloud thing we did, where we actually launched 150 channels in the cloud and ate them in just 6 Multiviewers. So yeah, we're always trying to add information there. But otherwise, talk to us. Talk to us and we can help you. And did you have anything you want to throw into that, Jan, or have I covered pretty much everything in too much detail?
Well, I can run, for instance, 3 HD channels with graphics off my laptop. Yeah, but then if you say, but I want to use XAVC as the source format for that, and I can say, yeah, okay, you're screwed. You now can only do one channel. So the question really comes down to it: what's your source format? Can I optimize that? For instance, if you use our own Daniel 2 codec, which can decode in the GPU as the source format, the CPU load becomes almost nil. Yeah. So you can, of course, optimize it to a pipeline where the load will be laughably low. I can say one CPU core gives you one playout channel, but that comes with a whole lot of writers attached. But it has to be this format, it has to be doing that and that and that and that. Then that can all be achieved. And if you then say, oh, but we quickly have to throw an HAVC file there as well to play out, then you are absolutely trousered.
Yeah. You when you line these things up, you really have to plan for the worst case of what someone might do. And so you can optimize on Rails. I mean, I have customers running on G4 DN 2X larges, so and even 4 the X larges, which are 4 CPUs or 8 CPUs, and they're running 4 HD channels on these really light machines. In the Cloud Challenge, we were running 25 SD channels on each one of these VMs. So yeah, when you start having to ask questions like, what's on your graphics? Is it a bug? Is it Daniel 2 encoded assets? Or as we found for some customers, they're like, oh, it's just a layer. And you look and it's 3 different XDCAM HD trailers in full HD all being dropped on. And you're like, yeah, that's 3 extra engines effectively running to play in full trailers. So yeah, it's really complicated. And we do understand why customers find it difficult. But we are here to help you. So, are we done?
So we're pretty much there. Probably the most topical question I've got left in here is, what are our intended plans for trade shows in the future, given that several of them have been cancelled recently?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this digital event, I mean, we've invested further in our studios here. We've got practice at it now. So, we'd love to hear your feedback in particular as customers, like, is this event valuable? Would you like to see such a thing every year, even if trade shows take back off? So please send back what you think. And so far, we've just been looking at number of views on the TechCon event we did, similar to this, but more technical. And we do see some great numbers on this and think this is very worthwhile. So let us know, has this been valuable? Would you like us to change the format? Jan, maybe you can say something about future trade show plans.
Well, we still will be doing NAB and IBC. IBC, well, we were still set on going just 2 weeks ago, and then finally the cancellation came through, which was kind of expected, but the booth space was paid, the builder was paid, the flights were booked, and so on and so forth, hotel arranged, and well, then it didn't happen. NAB is booked. IBC, we have the same location and probably even a bigger booth than before. And we will certainly hope that IBC next year will take place as planned. They certainly have enough time to get their job sorted and fight the pandemic until then. Or it will be a different type of experience, but we're not giving up on trade shows, at least for the flagpole trade shows such as NAB and IBC.
Cool. So there's hope for me being able to get to the warm sun of Vegas in April, beating out the winter blues from me, and to finally buy some new Levi's. Mine have worn right through.
Okay, well, I don't know whether I've been disconnected from the internet or whatever. There may be questions still hanging in the ether somewhere, but I'm not seeing any more questions come through at the moment. But of course, we can always answer those questions afterwards, because we will have them if you've emailed them into us.
Yes.
So don't be afraid that we've ignored you if you've been ignored. I apologise, but I don't think so. I'm not seeing any more questions come through at the moment. Apart from one question from Mr. Pilbeam. I don't know where that came from.
Where's this going?
Where are Simon's bad jokes?
Oh, the Simon. Are we going to close out this event on some Simon? Oh, there's a Jan waving. There's a finger waggle.
I think what Lewis should still point out is that we saw Cloud Desktop as being the poster child of what we're doing in the cloud. But you should probably say that where we are with some other products and how far they are trailing behind, because they aren't.
Yeah, I mean, I have a steely-eyed focus on shipping. To quote Jan, who I think was quoting Steve Jobs, shipping is a feature. So my goal has been, I just stop talking to me about other things. What I want to do is leave prototype land behind and get something real in customers' hands. And I can hand on heart say a couple of partners have access to Synergy Cloud Desktop now and have been poking at it. Mr. Anders, So I've been working so hard to get this to the point where we can be production ready. But it's going to go so quickly once we get the infrastructure in place, because infrastructure things like a unified Synergy login, a unified set of secured web services for doing even incredibly boring things like associating a person with a group. That's put in place. And as soon as I get past this entry point of Cloud Desktop, I have plans to move Synergy Root to the cloud, to have a hosted root database. Obviously, we've had Synergy Air running in the cloud for years in an on-premise style where people can just control it through the marketplace. But we have, as soon as we've got Cloud Desktop and the ability for Archive, which is obviously underpinning Cloud Desktop, to start ingesting and eating assets, we can throw them into a playout. So Synergy Air is kind of sat there waiting for this stuff to appear. We actually have a full cross-platform, web-connected interface for Air waiting to go live to talk to that as well. Because when we found trying to roll this stuff out to customers, discovery of services, traversal of firewalls is so difficult. But the cloud there is going to help us actually bridge those gaps. So yeah, I mean, 2022 is shaping up to be incredibly exciting for doing this. And of course, because even before I joined Synergy, which is now 12 years, that man there in my corner was telling the world at SMPTE that virtualization is the future of Playout and that Playout engines will just be a VM on a public cloud before EC2 was widely launched. So, our back-end platforms have been optimizing for this since before anyone even thought this might be a good idea. So I'm very, very, very much hoping that once I get some of what I call the boring stuff, managing user groups and dealing with securing APIs done, which is much less exciting to demo, but actually dealt with already for Cloud Desktop, when that boring stuff's done, all of a sudden this 10-year progression of things will just snap in. And we want to get to the point where people really can just click Open SRT ingest, and that will automatically start permitting a capture through SRT into that archive, or the corollary, start playout broadcast, and they'll just click a button, begin being billed every hour, and drag content that they've uploaded through Cloud Desktop and clipped and worked with. All of that is due to happen. So yeah, there's a huge amount happening there, and for partners as well, that hybrid mode, we want to run this for customers, but actually where you've got jurisdictional issues or you want to retain control, we will still support people on-premising all this stuff. And the stuff we've built, the way we've orchestrated this, is not cloud vendor specific. So what we show running in Cloud Desktop, that was running from AWS in Ireland, but we can actually on-premise that with the double click of a batch file that actually deploys inside on-premise containers, or any other cloud environment versions that people want. So we do want to work with customers and talk to other partners that might want to kind of host a Synergy Cloud themselves and still offer just as good as, or even better with their own services layered on, services we can deliver. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's what you meant by that, Jan. Anything I missed?
Nope,
Just
that's
sage nodding. Cool. Right, Simon, anything to torture us with other than jokes, or is it joke time?
It is simply joke time, I think. There's nothing else come through for me at the moment that I have sight of. So I apologise if people are sending things in and I'm not seeing them, but there's nothing more come through.
Cool. So in that case, we'll kind of... Are we wrapping up? Are we letting you play any jokes? Are we gonna spin on and actually have that?
It's entirely your decision.
Well...
I have the technology to do either to play them or to ignore them.
I think the audience expects it. So go on then. Play us a joke or tell us a joke. Go for it, guys.
Hello once again. This means that we've either broken down or that you're just all so sad you really want to hear some of Simon's worst jokes. So this time I thought we'd do some Christmassy jokes, though. So here we go. How did Mary and Joseph know Jesus' weight when he was born? They had a weigh in a manger. What happened to the man who stole an advent calendar? He got 25 days. Why was the snowman looking through the carrots? He was picking his nose. What is the best Christmas present in the world? A broken drum. You just can't beat it.
I have to end it. Let's kill.
Why did no one bid
yank
for?
him off. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. So there we go. He made all his jokes. We let them come out. But that's it. We had a chance there just off camera to check that there were no things we needed to answer. So I will wrap up now and just thank everyone that contributed, everyone that contributes within the company. Obviously, we have nothing without our teams building things, documenting things, testing things, selling things. So thank you to all that contributed, either directly or indirectly. And thank you for actually joining us and spending your time listening to us give you an update of what's going on. We hope you found it valuable. And so thank you very much. And we wish you a happy holidays and a happy new year.
Yeah.